mean, this is disastrous for the government because, as the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, has said herself, there is no plan B. The government bet the house on Rwanda as being the one policy that they believed would act as a deterrent to those people smugglers across the channel. And the court...
Why would the people smugglers be deterred by this, right? The migrants might be deterred. Obviously, they haven't been and they won't be because deterrents very rarely work. But why would it be a deterrent for the smuggling gangs? They just want to take the money and scarper, right? They don't care whether the people that they dump in Britain end up in Rwanda or whether they end up in Shipping Norton, right? Like, no one is fussed as far as the smuggling gangs are concerned, whether or not there is Rwanda flights. What they really should have been doing, as I mentioned before, was opening up safe and legal routes so that the demand for the smuggling gangs was undercut. Simple as that.
Court of Appeal, and now, of course, the Supreme Court relied a good part on the evidence from the UNHCR, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, who gave evidence that Rwanda had, in the past, as far as a similar deal with Israel is concerned, failed to live up to its obligations to properly process those asylum seekers.
There you go. This is it. See? And it's the same ideology that underpins both, right? It's the same people who just don't want people undermining the ethnic nature of the country, right? Britain don't want non-white people, and neither do Israel, and that's why we want to ship them off to Rwanda, the one where they've had plenty of instances of human rights abuses, where, as we've seen, they're very happy to ship asylum seekers back to their country of origin, and when they're currently inflaming tensions on their western border with the Democratic Republic of Congo by funding militant groups like the March 23 movement, trying to overrun and overthrow the government in towns such as Goma and Kivu. But of course, that doesn't matter to anybody in the UK government. They just want to get rid of the brown people
in those instances, and they were at risk of fulfilment. Yes, as you say, of these people being returned to their home countries where they could be at risk in those nations they were returned to. The Supreme Court said that they have no doubt that Rwanda did enter into this agreement with, all of the proper intention to carry out their function to process these the asylum applications properly, but at this stage the Supreme Court does not believe that Rwanda is capable of fully meeting all of its obligations here in processing these asylum applications properly, and that there is a risk that people could be returned to their home countries, and as such...
I'm loving the very high production values here on GB News, where we can hear his voice echoing in the microphone of the presenters over in the GB News office. And this graphic looks like what you get on those fake news programs on YouTube. Like, not that the news is fake, but the program itself is made to look like an official news channel, but it's just a YouTube channel, right? And it's all AI generated with robotic voices, and they use very rudimentary graphics to make it look like a news station. This is literally what GB News looks like. Incredibly high production value.
They could be at risk in those home countries. So now it, of course, is for the new Home Secretary, James Cleverly, and the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, to digest what has been handed down here. But it is a bitter blow, without a doubt, to the government, who really has been fighting the courts all the way through since this was first announced as a policy by the then Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, in April of last year. It's been through various court battles. The final one here at the Supreme Court has gone against the government. So it will be interesting, of course, to see what the government comes up with now in terms of a solution going forward. But as Suella Braverman said, she doesn't believe there is any plan B that the government has to hand that could actually...
I mean, there's no plan B in terms of a deterrent, right? If they want to push this through, they're going to have to leave all of these international agreements and then just be happy with putting refugees into planes and flying them to a country that might end up being conflict with the Congo in some time in the future. Although the Rwandans are probably fine because we've spent loads of money building houses over there for them to live in, which is quite amusing.
Editor is Chris Hope. This is a major crisis now for Rishi Sunak's government because, as Suella Braverman has said in her explosive resignation letter, no plan B.
A complete disaster here. Now calls will mount on the backbenches from Tory MPs to pull out of...
They're both echoing on both ends. They're both echoing in the GB News studio. This is incredible.
European Convention on Human Rights. That's the next step, because unless the government here can appeal to the European Court, which I doubt it wants to, what is the next step? What the only issue, I think, maybe the olive branch, maybe that Labour have not got a better idea than the Tory party on this. They simply want to work closer, I think, with enforcement groups on the continent. But this is a major, major blow. Stop the boats was one of the central...
If you want to stop the boats... There's a party that you can vote for that wants to open up the safe and legal routes, which would break the demand of the smuggling gangs. They're called the Green Party. You can vote for them if you want.
Thanks of Mr Sunak's time in office. It hasn't happened. It now can't go ahead unless there's some serious action from the government. But what will happen next? We do know that James Cleverly, who of course is the new Home Secretary, is against pulling out of the ECHR. So what will Mr Sunak do? We'll wait and see at Prime Minister's questions. But this is a real setback for Mr Sunak on a day when he has seen inflation halve. He's hit his target on inflation. It's one step forward, one step back.
Because this reminds me of David Cameron's government, which made absolutely no contingency planning whatsoever for Britain leaving the European Union, because it never occurred to them in their arrogant ways that the British people could possibly go against what they wanted. Here we've had setback after setback in the court. 90 months this plan's been in the making and no alternative, nothing waiting in the wings so we can say, actually, we can do this instead. Nothing. That's a failure of leadership and government, isn't it?
Well, it's a failure of everybody who campaigned to leave the European Union. None of them had any plans at all either, Andrew, right? The British public were well within their rights to be able to vote for the things that were put on offer to them. Absolutely. But the people who were pushing that, both in government and from outside, didn't have any plans either. They didn't know what it wanted to look like. They didn't care about what it looked like. They just wanted to make sure that they were out and let somebody else pick up the pieces. And David Cameron wanted to have the vote to shore up his political position, and then when it didn't go the right way, he then left with his trotters up in Nice, and then left someone else to deal with the mess. Another Remainer, of course, which made it even funnier.
It does seem a failure. I mean, they've had one year of waiting around, no attempt to bring forward any legislation in case this happened. But look at other countries, though. Germany is looking at processing migrants in a third country. Other countries are looking at the British model. So there may be some...
It's not a British model. To be fair, it's probably the Blair model. He was the one who wanted to send refugees to Tanzania, right? But you got to remember that the ruling itself isn't about necessarily the ECHR or indeed the UN Convention on Refugees, right? What it's about is whether or not you can designate Rwanda itself a safe country. Because most of the ruling is about the fact that Rwanda themselves haven't been fulfilling their obligations. That if you were to send them to another third country, it's very clear within the ruling that there is the space to be able to do that if you find a country that doesn't violate the actual treaties themselves. So if you want to send them to a third country, you've got to choose somewhere else, mate. You can't choose the place run by the guy who massacred refugees in the Second Congo War. Like, that's a thing that he did, Paul Kagame, in Rwanda. So you've got to send them somewhere else, right?
Comfort there, or maybe some support from international partners that Mr Sunak needs right now. But this is a real crisis for him because the right will be really, really worried about this. And of course, we had Suella Braverman resign yesterday. We're waiting to hear her first big interview, whether that's a statement to MPs maybe next week, or whether it's going to be an interview with any channel. What she'll say next is so important, I think, because it looks right now that Mr Sunak has lost a central plank of his time as Prime Minister.
OK, thank you very much, Chris. Christopher Hope there at 10 Downing Street. Richard Tice is still with us in the studio. Richard, how much money do you think we've already given to Rwanda before we've even sent one asylum seeker over there? How much have we given to build hotels, to get it all ready? How much?
I don't know.
I'll tell you.
May come out. You've obviously got the information.
£140 million we've given to Rwanda.
I mean, frankly...
Hang on. Based on Third Worldist. Got 'em, right? It was all a sneaky trick from the internationalists within the Conservative Party to engage in nation building in Rwanda by building homes and building residences for the working people of Rwanda. They knew it was going to fail, but they wanted to find justification for increasing the foreign aid budget to be able to build homes for the workers of Rwanda, based on third world pills. Let's go.
I'm not finished yet. And that's before we talk about what we've spent on the lawyers to get us to this place. It is an absolute shambles. And Suella Braverman is right. He doesn't care. He hasn't got a plan B.
It's true. I mean, literally, they promised us levelling up, and they're doing it. They're just doing it in Rwanda and not indeed in Stockton-on-Tees.
He needs to resign. Never mind her.
That is the reality. I mean, this is gross negligence on every level. To have handed that money over in the fear that you could lose this case, to have handed that money over with no plan B, no alternative, deliberately. The Prime Minister has deliberately...
Haven't we built houses in Rwanda, which Rwanda's now using? Yes, literally. That's exactly what's happened, yeah.
Rejected the advice of his own Home Secretary to have a plan B. She wrote to him, she told him how to do it.
He didn't answer reply to her letters.
He didn't even reply to a letter. Frankly, he's humiliated, he's exposed, he should resign, he should call an election, and those of us who believe that we should leave the European Court of Human Rights, we will fight the next election on leaving the ECHR, stopping the boats. This will become the slogan of the next general election, I have no doubt whatsoever.
What, leaving the ECHR?
I think stopping the boats by leaving the ECHR.
But the ECHR is not the only thing stopping you from doing the Rwanda plan. It's been clear in the ruling that leaving the ECHR won't allow you to just send people to Rwanda, right? Even under the rules in the ECHR, you could still send people to a third country, just not one which has a history of human rights abuses, a history of massacring refugees, and a history of sending people back to their country of origin, right? If you can find a better country to go to, then you would be able to do that even under the current conventions and current treaties that we're signed up to. Yeah, but they'll just lie about it, do racist fear-mongering. Well, exactly, because of course none of this is about whether or not that there is some kind of efficacy in the plan or not. It's stopping the brown people from coming to the UK, and it's about trying to remove ourselves from international treaties that stop the government from attacking you, right? It may be refugees coming here from Afghanistan and Syria, right? It may be them now that they're using as a justification for stripping away human rights for everybody in this country. It may be them now. But anybody who's watching this gleefully looking forward to be able to deport brown people that they don't like to Rwanda, you're next. Okay, don't be under no illusions. You'll be next when your human rights that you would have been protected before are going to be coming under threat from a future Conservative draconian government, right? And I will not be the one to say I told you so. I'm going to let you stew in your own juices when that happens.
See, what we've just heard then from Judge Reid, Lord Reid, is that it isn't just about the ECHR, it's about the UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency. Those are the ones, that's what's done for us.
Who have sent refugees to Rwanda.
I've just been looking, whilst he was speaking, at a 29-page report by the UNHCR, dated April 2023, that actually congratulates Rwanda on how well it's done in so many areas to do with asylum. It only refers to 3 refoulement cases in the whole of 2022. And so there is a serious conflict there. But frankly, who runs this country? Is it the UNHCR? Is it the ECHR? Or is it the Prime Minister, the Cabinet and the government that's elected by the people?
And the unelected judges.
I mean, if you want to run in the next election on leaving these conventions, you're well within your rights to do so. Put it in your manifesto. Let people vote for it, right? If people care that much, they'll vote for it as a flagship manifesto policy, right? Because, you know, we made the choice to sign up to those things in the first place, right? We exercised our sovereignty to agree to those treaties. The only way to break them is to leave them. And you're well within your right to put that to the public. I just, don't think that we should do that to protect our own human rights so that we have another body to appeal to when the Conservative government gets bored of attacking brown people and starts attacking poor and working class people instead.
By the way, Richard, the unelected judges.
Yes, but the judges interpret the law. The Prime Minister and the government, they can create law. The former Home Secretary said you need to change the law, you need to have an alternative. He rejected that. He's humiliated. He is absolutely on the back foot.
So people watching this programme and listening on the radio are going to be shouting and screaming at the TV and the radio. They're going to be shouting and screaming. They are so frustrated. We all know how deeply concerned people are. There's scores, hundreds of people, 650 odd on Sunday alone, Richard.
The actual numbers aren't that big, but I understand people are frustrated with it. But again, if you want to stop the boats, open up the safe and legal routes, you'll break the demand. Simple as that.
Is the quick solution, Richard, because leaving the European Court would take forever. What if you were Home Secretary and Prime Minister? What would you do differently?
Very simple. I've said it time and time again, using existing treaties, I would pick up and safely take back to France. Yeah. Every single one. Just this weekend, the French authorities...
The treaty that would have allowed us to send them back to France was the one that we are no longer signatories to because of Brexit, which you campaigned for.
They rescued 7 boats with 200 people. They took them back to France. The Belgian authorities are picking them up, taking them back to France. So
yeah, because they're still a member of the European Union, Richard. I get frustrated that we actually haven't touched on enough just how much of this issue is specifically happened in recent years because of our leaving the European Union, right? Once we'd actually gone through with fully leaving it, right? Suddenly a bunch of these treaties, like the Dublin Protocol that we were signed up to, we are no longer signatories to. This is why the problem started now and not before. Because previously there were not only easy return agreements, right? But there are also easier routes available as well. Now the routes have been closed and the return agreements have been stopped, and we have to relitigate and renegotiate all of these things.
We could do that. It requires courage, it requires leadership. There's none of that within this government, within Number 10 and the Prime Minister, and until there is, nothing will change. That's the key point.
Richard, don't we also need to have some safe and legal routes for people who want to seek asylum, where they apply, but they apply online? I mean,
and even then, those safe and legal routes are only available to Afghanistan at the moment, right? I believe the Syria one has expired now, and there's nothing about Iraq or Iran or the Congo or in Sudan or from Ethiopia or in loads of other places where if you are legitimately going to be an asylum seeker from, right? There are plenty of places around the world people are under persecution and need to flee from to claim asylum. And the only legal routes that we have, like the Syria one has ended, Afghanistan has only repatriated like 30 people, and the other 2 are from Hong Kong and Ukraine, which is weird that those ones have given us hundreds of thousands of asylum seekers through those legal routes from the white country and from the colony of ours just south of China. Yet when it comes from the brown and Muslim countries, nothing.
Far be it from me to normally promote technology. They apply online. We can look at it. We can decide how many people we want. We can give the green light to some and say, no, I'm sorry to others. We don't have that system.
I'm sorry, that's absolute nonsense. We have got safe and legal routes. Look at what we've done for Afghanistan. Look at what we've done.
Look what we've done for Afghanistan. Not very much, Richard. 30 people. That's not a large amount, considering the millions of people who live there and the absolute scores of people who have fled there, right? They're being kicked out of Pakistan back into Afghanistan now.
Done for Ukrainians. Look at what we've done for Syrians. We've had plenty of safe and legal routes. We have a visa system which is safe and legal routes for those who want to come to this country. 1.2 million people. We're one of the most generous, welcoming nations in terms of immigration in the world.
And that's not even true. Like, that's just not true. We've taken far fewer refugees than most other countries per capita, right? There's a reason we take 5 figures worth of asylum seekers from the countries in Asia, right? And Turkey and Lebanon and Jordan have taken millions, like 7 figures, like factors of 10 more than we have, right? Sure, we've taken more Ukrainians and people from Hong Kong, but there's a reason why we're taking more people from Ukraine and Hong Kong, and that's because they're geopolitically relevant to us, right? Ukraine to attack Russia and Hong Kong to attack the CCP. Yet there's no one that we care about in the Middle East, and of course they are indeed brown people as well, which doesn't help. Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership to just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.